5 years ago, I married the love of my life. Emily was everything I ever wanted: beautiful, kind, and my best friend. I thought we had it all: love, trust, and a future together. But I was wrong.
Today was our anniversary.
5 years.
I wanted it to be perfect,
But something felt off.
She was smiling, but it didn't reach her eyes.
And her phone, she kept hiding it, like it held a secret she didn't want me to see. I wasn't looking for anything,
Just a pen.
but there it was: a receipt for a hotel in the city.
Last weekend.
She told me she was on a work trip. But this
wasn't work.
I remember dropping her off at the airport.
She kissed me goodbye, said she'd be back soon.
But now I wasn't so sure. I called her office
Just to check.
Her secretary said she hadn't traveled for work in months.
That's when I knew something wasn't right.
I couldn't ignore it anymore. I hired a private investigator.
His name was Mark.
I told him everything: the receipt, the lies, the way she'd been acting. He said he'd look into it, but he warned me.
Sometimes the truth hurts more than the lie.
I didn't know it then, but Emily was hiding more than I could have imagined.
And the truth, it was closer than I thought.
I thought I knew everything about her.
But now, I'm not so sure. I followed her. I had to know. She drove to a house in another town, one I'd never seen before.
And there he was, a man.
2 kids,
They looked happy.
like a family. My heart sank.
Who was he? Was she with him? I couldn't hold it in anymore. I confronted her.
And that's when she told me, James is my husband too. We've been married for 10 years. 10 years.
I felt like the ground had been ripped out from under me. She told me everything. She married James when she was young.
It was a mistake. He was controlling, abusive. She left him, but she never got a divorce.
Then she met me, and she fell in love. But she was too scared to tell me the truth. James found her. He threatened to ruin her life if she didn't stay in his.
She was trapped. And I
had no idea. I didn't know what to do. I loved her, but how could I trust her?
How could I believe anything she said? I met him, James. He looked me in the eye and said, she's mine, always has been. I wanted to punch him, but I couldn't.
I just stood there, feeling broken. My wife secretly had another husband.
For years.
This act focuses on the confrontation, the twist, and the resolution of the story.
David's narration guides the audience through the emotional climax and the beginning of the healing process. We finally talked, really talked. I asked her to choose him or me, but it wasn't that simple. She was crying, begging me to understand.
And then she told me
She was pregnant.
she didn't know who the father was, me or him. I felt like the world had stopped.
How could this be my life? How could we come back from this?
I couldn't just sit there and do nothing.
I started digging, and I found something James had been stealing from her. For years.
He'd been using her, manipulating her.
It wasn't just about love or control. It was about money. I confronted him, told him I'd go to the police if he didn't leave her alone. He tried to threaten me, but I wasn't scared anymore.
I had the upper hand.
He left, but the damage was done.
The lies, the betrayal.
It wasn't something we could just forget.
She filed for divorce, finally, but it didn't fix everything.
We had to decide.
Could we move forward? Could we rebuild what we had? I didn't know if I could trust her again, but I loved her. And love, it's not always easy. Sometimes it's messy.
Sometimes it hurts.
But maybe it's worth fighting for.
This act focuses on the aftermath, the final revelations, and the uncertain but hopeful future for David and Emily. David's narration ties everything together. As the story reaches its emotional conclusion, time passed. Emily had the baby, a little girl. She was beautiful.
I didn't know if she was mine, but
It didn't matter, not really.
she was innocent in all of this, and holding her, it felt like a new beginning.
We took it one day at a time. Some days were hard. The trust wasn't there like it used to be.
But we were trying.
And that had to count for something.
Then, one day, I got a letter.
From James.
He said he was sorry, that he was leaving town for good. He said he realized he'd been holding onto something that was never really his. I didn't know if I believed him. But
It didn't matter anymore.
he was out of our lives.
Emily started seeing a therapist.
She told me she needed to work through her guilt, her fear.
I was proud of her for that. It wasn't easy, but she was trying to heal. And so was I. Love isn't perfect. It's messy, complicated, and sometimes painful.
But it's worth fighting for.
We're not the same people.
We were before all of this. But maybe that's okay. Maybe we're stronger now. Or at least, we're trying to be. I don't know what the future holds.
But for the first time in a long time, I'm ready to find out.